New York Times has a poll which shows Biden ahead of Trump among likely voters, among all voters, including people who didn't vote in 2020. He's losing to Trump. I mean, it's hard for me to think that the people who didn't turn out for the highest turnout election in American history, where we had like the easiest possible voting because of all the pandemic protocols put in, that those people are going to turn out in big numbers this time. That's hard for me to imagine. Maybe it will. Maybe it will turn out that way. So I saw this Times poll as encouraging news for Biden. Thoughts?
Same. I feel like I was on I need the shirt maybe for 2024 because that was like a big week for Tim being always right. Just like the never back down super PAC totally collapsing and crashing and burning and being completely worthless.
Have we even
after
talked
I'd read
about that?
No, let's do that. Let's do that on top of TPUSA.
Okay, we'll add that after. So I had that, that I've been writing about for a while about how worthless that super PAC is, how they're burning their money on fire. I saw there was a Puck story about how some new donors putting $10 million into Nikki Haley, and I was like, why won't one of these people call me? I want to save you money, rich people. I want to save you money. Okay, anyway, this poll on the Tim is always right. The flip, I don't think that it is not sunk in with our democracy friends, our pro-democracy friends in the nonprofit activism space, some of whom listen to this podcast. So I'm just trying to help it sink in, that we have had a switch in the electorate. In addition to the red dog switch for the working class voters, as part of that switch, we now have a situation where the least likely to turn out people are hostile to Democrats. And the most likely to turn out people are the core of the Democratic base. This was not true when I was growing up early in politics, and so for a while, like that's part of the reason why part of the reason that why Republicans have a reputation for voter suppression is because they've tried voter suppression a lot, particularly in the cities. But another reason is just that there was a general sense in Republican campaigns, it was kind of unspoken, like we wanted turnout to be down, more people was bad, right? That's not true. That's not true in 2024. We kind of want turnout to be down. And I thought that the Joe Biden number of being better, I thought this was the most encouraging thing. Among 2020 voters, the result was better than 2020. He had gained 2 points. Again, there's margin of error, so that's kind of noisy. But still, I thought that's telling, and I think that a lot of these polls right now that are using a registered voter screen are causing a little bit of unnecessary panic. So I'm not sanguine. I'm not like, oh, this is not a hopium Substack. God love you. But it's just I was encouraged by that because I concur with you, JVL, that I think that like looking at that likely voter screen in the biggest turnout election in history, that's a good sign for Biden.
And I think that like the polling right now, again, saying something that people may not love, but the numbers with young people, like it feels like a temper tantrum. Like we're in the middle of a temper tantrum that people are having over Joe Biden being the nominee, Joe Biden's position on Israel, and like have your temper tantrum. But people who are so one of the things my team's been looking at a bunch of the numbers from 2020 as we think about our 2024 campaigns. And there's a bunch of interesting stuff, where actually white voters over 65, who you think of as being pretty Trumpy, are actually the ones who have been moving more in Joe Biden's direction. Yep. Now, why is that? Because a lot of those over 65 voters are people who remember Reagan's Republican Party and do not identify with Trump's Republican Party. And so there is
fascism.
That's right. That's right. They remember when Russia was our enemy. Yeah, and so those people are actually moving. And I think that and those people vote absolutely reliably. Whereas a lot of these young voters who are having temper tantrums are not the most reliable voters. And so, I don't think we have to like get too high on the hopium one way or the other, or even interpret the 2 percentage points. I do think like it's the reason that Democrats have been winning these off-year elections, right? Is because these voters are reliable in off-year elections. And so that it is worth keeping this in mind that the Democrats have traded up in some regard by getting more reliable voters out of these kind of like red dog types, and that's good for them.
Did you see? I thought the most fascinating. Did you have a take on this? Because I want to actually pull up this number.
No, go.
Okay, here it is. Here it is. The most fascinating outtake from this New York Times poll. Nate Cohn is good at asking like nerd questions deep down that like scratch my nerd itch. So he asked people for their vote who voted. Did you vote in the 2014 election? Now, obviously, there's going to be some self-identifying issues here, but it's still the trend is kind of interesting. Among the people that said that they voted in 2015, the party registration was R+5, but the 2024 vote was Biden +10. Like that is your red dogs. Like that is a 15-point switch of people that voted that were Republicans in 2014 that have Biden in 24. Now, on the flip side, didn't vote in 2014. These are the unreliable voters we're talking about. D+10 in their party registration, Trump +8 in their expected vote for next time. These are your union guys that never voted
lifestyle
before. And,
lifestyle voters.
Your lifestyle voters. I mean, I just thought that was like if you wanted just a one stat that was like realignment in one stat. I thought it was very kind of telling, and that folks are like still a little like they understand that the realignment is happening, but like the degree to which it's happened, a 18-point and 15-point swing, I think it hasn't sunk in for a lot of folks.
And this is where it's easy to think, well, look, there's a lot more white working class voters who vote on like the gays are getting married and I don't like it, and the college educated suburban voters are a smaller percentage. And so you're like, oh, it feels like, Dems are losing on that trade. But the reason that it's a good trade and they're trading up is that those voters are more reliable, who will show up. And those people who only really get motivated by like the invasion, whatever. But then on the downside is that this is where when Trump is actually on the ballot, you just worry about the turnout equation because they show up for Trump. Like it is, and the question of persuasion and pushing this realignment and focusing for persuasion on, a lot of these sort of white suburban voters, that's important. But it's going to come down to turnout and how much people are motivated by Trump.